Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the CTO of Evaluate, and today we're doing a feature spotlight of the auto-scoring code questions. So we'll just jump right in. This is one of the features in our roadmap that was the most requested, which is the ability to add a question that the candidates must write code for, and then to automatically score that code. So we're going to go ahead and go to questions. We'll add a new question. In the question type dropdown, you'll see there's now the code option, and we're just going to create a code question. So I'm going to call this JavaScript add two numbers together. And I'll add just a quick intro text to it. Complete function to add the two numbers and return the result. So down below, you'll see that there's the option for the type of code, and we're going to choose JavaScript. There's actually a few options for JavaScript in there. JavaScript Rhino, Node.js, which is essentially going to use a similar engine, and TypeScript. So we're going to go for the JavaScript Rhino option. And you'll see that once I do that, auto-score this question automatically gets turned on. We have the ability to add arguments that will be passed to the function. We have the ability to edit the code stub that the candidate will see. And we have the ability to add test cases that will be used to evaluate the candidate's submission. So in these test cases as well, you'll see that there's a flag about whether it's marked as an example test case. Example test cases will be seen by the candidate, and they'll be able to test their code against that example test case. So in ours, we're just going to add two arguments, an integer num1 and another integer num2. And you'll see that immediately they get added into the code stub. Now we have to define those test cases. By default, you always have one example test case and one that's not an example test case. The reason for that is because we want the candidate to see and be able to test themselves against the example test case, the public one. But we also then, when they submit it, we want to evaluate them against these private test cases as well. So now we're going to do an example where num1 is 3 and num2 is 5, and we expect an output which is an integer of 8. And we'll do another one, so 10 and 20, and we expect an output of 30. So we're going to go ahead and save this question, which is called JavaScript add two numbers together. We're going to quickly go and create a new test that uses that question. Question example. And I'm going to add we need to find it. JavaScript add two numbers. And we'll save our test. So next step, I'm going to go and send that to myself. So I've received the test, and I've clicked to now do that test. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. And this is the UI for the coding question itself. We've only got one question in this test, which is the only one I added. So complete the function to add the two numbers and return the result. And it's asking me to add my code here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say return num1 plus num2. I might just quickly make it wrong, just so I can see these results. So the example test case is saying input parameters of 3 and 5. It's expecting to get 8 as the output, and I'm going to go and run my test. And it's telling me that's wrong because my output was 18. So I'm going to go and fix that code, and I'll rerun it. So it's now telling me I've got the correct output, or the expected output, and I can go ahead and submit it. Now when I submit, it's going to run those additional private test cases as well. Go submit, and that question is done. The next step is going to be going back, and I'll have a look at the dashboard. I can see that I've now completed this test. I got a score of 1 of 1, which is great. I'm going to click to see my results. I'm going to expand that question so I can see the answer that I gave, the code answer I gave, and I'm going to see how it performed against all of the test cases that I'd set up on that question, which I've passed both the example and the private test case. So that's the quick walkthrough of the code-based questions and the auto scoring.